A man on a journey through a freezing winterscape suffers the absolute bitterest of conditions. This story was one that I had actually read before, originally back in high school, but I had forgotten all about the story until the name was given to me as a recommendation for this series. After which I reread it, realized that I had indeed read it before, and that it definitely held up, that maybe I even liked it more than I did the first time around. London is a brilliant writer and sells the setting so well that I'm really glad I didn't read this book during the thick of a winter storm myself. I give To Build a Fire a 5 out of 5. If you live in the further northern portions of the northern hemisphere, this story may hit close to home, especially if winter is a major thing for you. If you happen to be like me who lives in the Rockies, winter is definitely a consideration, even though I'm not super far north. Imagine the coldest temperature you've ever been in. Assuming it is a negative temperature, that's the temperature here on the Yukon Trail, as long as you multiply it by 2 or 3 or maybe even 4, depending on your personal experience. Now imagine that maybe you aren't from this location that you are currently in. You've never experienced this kind of weather before. The cold is bitterer than you could have ever imagined. Your face and your mouth freeze solely through the act of breathing. The second you stop moving, you feel your blood run cold and run away from your fingertips and your feet. At least you have a destination. Some friends somewhere at the end of your path. You're only motivated primarily by getting to your destination. You're just trying to avoid falling into water and making it to the end of your path in time. Though you're inexperienced and in danger, you're on top of the world somehow. Unfortunately, things don't always go as we plan, and often don't come close. You break through the ice eventually, inevitably, but you manage to start a fire afterwards. Snow falls onto your fire while you're trying to warm up, and you continue to freeze until you hit a point of no return and desperation. You come to a point of being unable to come to a new solution, whether that be starting a new fire or by even killing your companion dog so that you can warm your hands back up in its body enough to start a fire. Now the true desperation sets in. And desperation in these kinds of temperatures is fatal. You just start to run with the fleeting hope of reaching your destination. You stumble and fall, but you get back up and you fight to get further. You stumble again, but you let the phantom warmth surround you in death, unable to reach your destination, unable to warm back up, unable to survive. Such is the story of To Build a Fire. This is, in some sense, the easiest story to cover for me so far in this series because it's really simple. It's pretty straightforward. It doesn't have a ton underneath the hood of what I just told you. But that does not mean that it isn't special. If you are familiar with the setting, the cold, snowy, bitter winter weather, you're going to understand the dangers of the man's folly and his trip as portrayed in this story. If you are not familiar with the setting, for example, if you happen to be near the equator where winter doesn't really exist unless you count 50 degrees Fahrenheit as being, scarf weather, you might still find something to love in London's wonderful prose and intentionally repetitive monologuing. Monologuing that really sells you even further on the setting by being in the character's head as he is traversing it. The base lessons one can impart from To Build a Fire are pretty important ones, not just for people living in snowy conditions, but living anywhere. Listen to the advice you are given by those wiser than you are. Don't traverse the wilderness alone, even if you are experienced, and especially if you're inexperienced. Take precautions and have backup plans for when things go bad, not if, because the more that you anticipate going wrong, the more you'll be prepared for in case it does. To Build a Fire is a simple but sweet story telling you the dangers of these things that I've just mentioned, and is also pretty scary and surreal if you are familiar with the kind of conditions being told. I've never been in temperatures nearly so cold as those in the story, that being negative 75 degrees Fahrenheit, but I have been in negative 25 degrees Fahrenheit shoveling in the early morning, and let's just say that your breath freezes very, very quickly in that condition, and your face goes numb. You're not wearing enough layers, your fingers and your toes also become numb and almost as if they're not there within minutes sometimes. It is quite a scary thing to experience, let alone anything much worse than that, and especially not in the middle of the wild. I'm glad for To Build a Fire to be the first 5 out of 5 on the series so far, and I'm excited to cover more London in the future. There's not really too much to analyze with the story, as I said. It's pretty straightforward, but a hell of a story to read and very, very enjoyable. In 2 weeks, the next fortnight, on the 2nd of June, I will be covering The Whole Town Sleeping by Ray Bradbury. I hope to see you there.